my other idol, Larry Bird. See, I tried to get as many as him. I couldn't get there. And then I was fighting this man.
It was a noble effort, though.
Yeah, noble effort.
Did you see so many rings in one?
Hey, no, all the rings are right here. What are you talking about? We got them all.
The majority of them are right here.
Going. And that's number one. And number two, how do we get it back?
Even for me, I love the NBA game, but then I turn on to a game, right?
You woke up Magic Johnson, and Magic doesn't wake up easy here is a fact that most people in the NBA conversation completely overlook. Magic Johnson won his first NBA championship in 1980, his rookie year when he dropped 42 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists in the clinching Game 6 of the NBA Finals, playing center, a position he had never played professionally. He was 20 years old. That performance is still considered one of the greatest individual finals performances in the history of the sport. Now keep that number, 20 years old, in your head, because a 23-year-old just told the world that nobody in that era had skill. And the man who scored 42 points as a rookie point guard playing center in the NBA Finals heard every single word. Anthony Edwards was asked a straightforward question by the Wall Street Journal. How does basketball today differ from older generations? His answer was short, unfiltered, and devastating. He said, I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it. I don't think anybody had skill back then. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill. That was the grenade, but there was a second one that most people miss. In the same interview, Edwards also said, I don't know too many guys who won a championship super young besides Kobe. The man he said that to indirectly was Magic Johnson, who won NBA titles in his first and third seasons in the league. Edwards swung blind, and he hit the one man in professional basketball history who smiles through everything, until now. Before this story goes any further, Hoop Action TV is closing in on 1,500 subscribers, and this channel exists for exactly these conversations. Real NBA breakdowns, real history, real analysis. If you are watching this and you have not subscribed yet, hit that button right now. Like this video, drop a comment, and share it with someone who thinks they know NBA history. Because after this video, the conversation is going to get very interesting. This is the kind of debate that separates people who actually know the game from people who just watch the highlights. To understand why Magic Johnson reacted the way he did, you first need to understand who Anthony Edwards is as a personality. At All-Star Weekend, Edwards told reporters, I want to be the guy to just show up and hoop and just kill dudes and go home. That is his identity. Raw, unfiltered, zero apology. He plays with a reckless confidence that makes him one of the most entertaining players in the NBA right now. Even Magic Johnson, the man he offended, later called him the most exciting player to watch in the NBA, alongside Ja Morant and Kyrie Irving. That is a real compliment from a man who played alongside Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for over a decade. So this is not a story about a bad player running his mouth. This is a story about a genuinely great player who made a statement so uninformed that it forced the most diplomatically positive figure in professional sports to take off the gloves. The first explosion came in Los Angeles. Magic Johnson, speaking to Stephen A. Smith at a public event, said, I never respond to a guy that's never won a championship. He didn't win a college championship. I don't know if he even won a high school championship. Stephen A. Smith later described the moment clearly. For him to take that tone and the harshness in which he said it lets me know he was highly agitated. That observation matters. Magic Johnson has been one of the most relentlessly positive public figures in sports for decades. He smiles through criticism. He builds people up. He promotes the game. For Stephen A. Smith, a man who has seen thousands of sports arguments up close, to specifically note the harshness in Magic's tone means something was genuinely different about this moment. Magic was not performing anger. He felt it. Then came the Jimmy Kimmel appearance. Magic Johnson looked directly into the camera and said, Thanks a lot, Anthony. I think he should have asked somebody, maybe his father or his grandfather, about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Dr. J, Isaiah Thomas, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Clyde Drexler, Dominique Wilkins. We had some of the most dominant players that's ever played. And then came the line that ended the debate for most people who were paying attention. You might want to talk trash when you've won something. Magic Johnson has 5 NBA championships, 3 Finals MVP awards, 3 regular season MVP awards, and is a Basketball Hall of Famer. He was not speaking as a man defending a reputation. He was speaking as a man stating a historical record, but Magic was not alone. Isaiah Thomas took to X, formerly Twitter, and reposted Edwards' quote with a message that cut deep without raising his voice. Thomas wrote, Propaganda works, so be careful what you choose to believe. Days later, he added a tactical argument that deserves serious attention. The only skill emphasized more is the three-point shot, creating the illusion that the athlete and skills have magically evolved into another athletic species. Then Thomas went further and made a point that is grounded in actual NBA rule history. They look faster today because of the rule change, which prohibits holding and hand checking to impede progress. This is not opinion. Hand checking was eliminated from the NBA in 2004. Before that rule change, defenders could use their hands to slow ball handlers, contest drives, and make penetration significantly harder. The game post-2004 physically rewards guards and wings in ways that the game of the 1980s and 1990s did not. Then the most stinging voice entered the conversation. Kevin Garnett, a basketball Hall of Famer, an NBA champion, and a franchise legend of the Minnesota Timberwolves, the same team Anthony Edwards now stars for, went on his podcast and said, "If I'm being honest, bro, I don't think anybody in this generation could have played 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you couldn't get to a triple step back. If you shot that SHT, it had to go in. We had efficiency back in the day. It was too physical." Then KG added, "You gotta know what you're talking about to be in the argument. I root for you, young fella, but know what you're talking about because what you said don't make no sense." That is a legend from Edwards' own franchise telling him in front of the entire sports world that he spoke without knowledge. That is not a generational debate anymore. That is a direct correction from a man who wore the same jersey. Now here is the layer of this story that most people in the mainstream conversation did not fully address. Magic Johnson never mentioned Larry Bird by name when he listed the athletic greats of his era. When Magic was on Byron Scott's podcast and named the players Edwards should have researched, his list included Michael Jordan, Dr. J, Kobe Bryant, Clyde Drexler, and David Thompson. He said, "I can keep going." But Bird was not in the athletic roll call, and that was not an accident. Larry Bird's legend was never built on athleticism. Bird won 3 consecutive NBA MVP awards from 1984 to 1986. He appeared in 5 NBA Finals. He won 3 championships. He did all of it without elite speed, without a remarkable vertical leap, and without the physical tools that define how modern players evaluate greatness. Bird bent the sport to his will through basketball IQ, competitive intensity, and a work ethic that his contemporaries described as borderline psychotic. When Magic Johnson and Larry Bird arrived in the NBA in 1979, the league was in serious trouble. NBA Finals games were not being broadcast live on national television. They were airing on tape delay. The sport did not have the cultural footprint it has today. 2 players from small market cities, Lansing, Michigan, and French Lick, Indiana, turned professional basketball into appointment television and rebuilt the entire commercial structure of the league. Magic himself said it directly. "Larry Bird and I knew what we had to do. I think we put the madness in March." When Edwards said that nobody in that era had skill, he was not just making a claim about basketball ability. He was, whether he knew it or not, calling Bird's entire legacy a myth. And Magic Johnson spent the better part of a decade going to war with Larry Bird. He will not let that stand without a response. On Byron Scott's podcast, Magic delivered what might have been his most personal statement in the entire exchange. He looked at the camera and said, "You youngsters, y'all better understand you going to run up on one of these old heads and get handled." Then he shared a private conversation he had with Michael Jordan in Europe. No cameras present, no media, just 2 men talking. Jordan had quietly asked Magic why today's stars sit out games. The man who played with a torn tendon, who showed up in conditions that would have put modern players in the injury report, privately baffled by the culture shift. That conversation was not for the public. Magic shared it because it speaks to something he believes the current generation has lost track of. Then Magic told a story about his own trainer. During an injury, Magic's trainer physically prevented him from suiting up. The trainer was forced to confiscate his jersey and put him in a t-shirt because everyone in that organization knew that if Magic Johnson had a jersey in his hands, he would tear it on and walk onto the court. That was not considered extraordinary behavior. That was the standard. That was the expectation of what it meant to be a professional basketball player in that era. Not a player who gritted through injury for a playoff game, a player who had to be physically restrained from playing a regular season game. The concept of a load management day did not exist in Magic Johnson's world. Anthony Edwards did not back down. After the responses from Magic, Isaiah Thomas, and Kevin Garnett hit the internet, Edwards reiterated his position, insisting that players today would have success against the previous generation, and that while players like KG could have played in any era, current players would have succeeded in earlier eras too. His confidence was not manufactured for the camera. At the 2024 Paris Olympics, playing for Team USA on a roster that included LeBron James, Stephen Curry, and Kevin Durant, Edwards was widely considered the most electric player on the floor. He is not a player with an inferiority complex. He has never been that, but confidence without historical knowledge is a specific kind of dangerous, and this situation demonstrated exactly what that looks like. Magic Johnson was direct about his terms for engagement. "I'll answer his questions when he wins some championships." Edwards has not won an NBA championship. He has not won a college championship. The scoreboard that Magic is pointing to is not about individual brilliance, it is about winning at the highest level. And in a sport where rings define legacy, that argument carries enormous weight. Magic's 5 rings are not just trophies, they are the foundation from which he speaks. Without that foundation, the argument in Magic's framework does not carry standing. There is a counterargument that deserves honest examination. Gilbert Arenas made a point during the broader conversation that uses a specific analogy. My Ferrari is faster than yours. Yours was top in the 80s. The governor has changed, the wheels, the brakes. My car is naturally just faster. The argument here is legitimate. Training science has evolved. Nutrition protocols have evolved. Sports medicine has advanced in ways that make modern athletes physically different from players of earlier generations. A player in 2025 has access to resources, technology, and training methodologies that simply did not exist in 1985. That is a fact, not an argument. But there is a response to that analogy that changes the frame entirely. A faster car does not prove the old driver was unskilled. Larry Bird played through back injuries that required surgeries that medical staff today say would have ended careers in the current era. That is not a car problem. That is a driver problem. And the drivers of that era drove until the wheels came off. Paul Pierce added another dimension to the conversation that moves beyond the athletic comparison entirely. Pierce acknowledged that players today are likely more skilled in certain technical areas, but argued that the current generation's approach to basketball is far too individualistic, with players more focused on personal branding and social media presence than on winning championships. That observation, coming from a former NBA champion and Finals MVP, connects directly to what Magic Johnson said about the league's 40% decline in viewership. Magic was not simply responding to Edwards' comment out of pride. On his podcast, he asked directly, 40% decline in viewership, where is it going? How do we get it back? Magic is linking the disrespect for the game's history directly to the league's declining cultural relevance. When individual brands replace team legacies, when sitting out replaces showing up, fans feel that shift and walk away. The connection Magic is making is not sentimental. It is commercial and measurable. The cost of what the players of that era built is not something that gets talked about enough in this conversation. Larry Bird's body broke down entirely by the end of his career. Bone spurs in both heels, multiple back surgeries. He retired at 35 because his body had been played into the ground. Magic Johnson's career was altered by circumstances that had nothing to do with basketball. Michael Jordan, the one player Anthony Edwards acknowledged had skill, pushed away nearly everyone close to him in the pursuit of winning. A character reality documented across decades of testimony from teammates, coaches, and family members. These men did not just play a sport. They gave their bodies, their relationships, and in some cases their health to the game. And a 23-year-old who has never held an NBA trophy looked at all of that and called it boring and unskillful. Here's the most precise way to state what this argument is actually about. Anthony Edwards is a generationally gifted basketball player who made a claim about a period of basketball history that he openly admitted he never watched. That admission, "I didn't watch it back in the day so I can't speak on it," should have ended the sentence before the dismissal began. Instead, he continued and dismissed an entire era of players in a single sentence. The players who responded, Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Kevin Garnett, did not respond because their feelings were hurt. They responded because the historical record is specific and measurable, and that record was being casually erased by someone who holds no championships, no MVP awards, and no finals appearances. As one analyst noted during the broader coverage of this story, the current level of all-around skill in the NBA today is off the charts, but it's a bad look to slight the legends of the past. Magic Johnson is not defending his own legacy in this conversation. His legacy does not need defending. 5 championships, 3 MVPs, 3 finals MVPs, Hall of Famer. The man's record stands without anyone's help. What Magic is defending is the legacy of Larry Bird, the man who proved that basketball greatness was never supposed to be measured in athleticism alone. Bird proved that a player who was slower, less explosive, and physically limited by modern standards could dominate the best athletes in the world through intelligence, preparation, and an absolute refusal to lose. When Edwards said nobody had skill, he was arguing against the most important idea in Larry Bird's entire career. And Magic Johnson, the man who fought Bird for a decade, who grew to respect and then love that rivalry, who credits Bird with pushing him to become the player he became, will go to war for that legacy every single time. Anthony Edwards performs today on a stage that Magic Johnson and Larry Bird built from nothing, in a league that was airing its championship games on tape delay before 2 players from Michigan and Indiana turned it into the cultural institution it is today. The NBA's television deals, its global reach, its commercial infrastructure, all of it was constructed on the foundation of a rivalry between 2 players who had never met before the NCAA championship game in 1979 and spent the next decade pushing professional basketball into the center of American sports culture. Edwards called that stage boring. Magic heard it. And based on everything Magic Johnson has said publicly across multiple platforms in the weeks following that Wall Street Journal interview, one thing is absolutely clear. Magic Johnson does not forget. The debate about which era of basketball produced better players will never have a clean resolution because the conditions were fundamentally different. Rules changed, training changed, the physical game changed. But the claim that an entire era produced no skilled players outside of one man is not a nuanced argument about evolution. It is a factual error made by someone who admitted he never watched the era he was dismissing. Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, and Kevin Garnett did not respond to debate. They responded to a mistake. And the record they pointed to, the championships, the MVPs, the bodies broken down in service of the game, is not a matter of opinion. It is documented basketball history. Now before you go, this is exactly the type of real NBA breakdown that Hoop Action TV was built for. If you found this video valuable, share it right now with someone who is on the wrong side of this argument. Drop a comment below. Do you think Magic was right to fire back the way he did? Or does Zen have a point and the Legends need to let this generation play its own game? This debate has layers, and the comment section is where it continues. And if you enjoy real NBA breakdowns like this, you will like what is coming next.